Yep. Nature of the world. But let's move into some more international stuff. Tucker Carlson. Okay, this will be a fun one. So Tucker Carlson, I don't know if you guys remember him. He had to fire his head writer because his head writer was a white supremacist and wrote for white supremacist papers and was on white supremacist. Yeah, and then he lied about the Dominion thing and then ended up getting fired by Fox News. And Fox News didn't even tell him he was fired until, because he was like, yeah, he left his show on like Friday and he's like, yeah, we'll see you Monday. And it was like, nope, you're not coming back into the building on Monday. He was gone.
Oh.
This was like the most efficient breakup ever. They just got rid of him. They just dumped him.
I mean, we could all take a page out of their book. Jeez.
That's how you do it. And then, so that was, yeah. So his last thing he said, his last sign off, the last thing he said on Fox News as an anchor was an ad for a TV show about eating bugs. That was that was how he left his professional journalism career, if you can call it. It was more of an entertainment show. So anyway, he's got a show now on X, which was formerly Twitter. So he's got a TV show, kind of like our show, kind of thing on Twitter. So he's been remanded to the world that we're in. You know, the difference is this is not our career, so we don't really, we don't take it personally. So anyway, he did something amazing. He got an interview with Vladimir Putin. Right?
Oh.
So he went. So he went to Moscow and interviewed Putin, and it did not go particularly well for Tucker. So we're gonna watch a couple quick clips. This is really good shit. I mean, Vladimir Putin's an evil guy, but sometimes he does amazing stuff. I'll give him that. He was an ex-KGB, so.
At the beginning of the interview, we asked the most obvious question, which is, why did you do this? Did you feel a threat, an imminent physical threat, and that's your justification? And the answer we got shocked us. Putin went on for a very long time, probably half an hour, about the history of Russia going back to the 8th century. And honestly, we thought this was a filibustering technique and found it annoying and interrupted him several times. And he responded he was annoyed by the interruption. What you're about to see seemed to us sincere. You're making the case that that Ukraine, certainly parts of Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, is in effect Russia has been for hundreds of years. Why wouldn't you just take it when you became president 24 years ago? You have nuclear weapons.
So what ended up happening, we'll watch a little bit. David Pakman covers this really well, so we'll watch him in a second here. Basically, Putin rambled on for 2 hours about just when he went back to literally like medieval times and talked all the way up and just did this long Russian propaganda history lesson.
I mean, you kind of can't blame him for being like, are we being filibustered here? What's going on? I mean,
but here's the difference. Tucker Carlson is used to like he's not a very good journalist. He could have attacked it more, right? But you have to understand, in the U.S., we constantly attack our political leaders. And that's actually an important thing that we do. And it's important for our journalists to do that. They're the fourth estate, right? We constantly to be criticizing them. But when you're a dictator like Putin, nobody criticizes you to your face. Nobody asks you tough questions. That's why Putin never does these interviews. But he did it with Carlson because he knew he could push him around. And that Carlson would be basically his little bitch boy. And so David Pakman covers this. It's really funny. It was just Putin basically talks down to him the whole time. So this is just some clips from David Pakman.
I have to talk to. And the way that Putin shows his complete and total disregard for Tucker Carlson is he gives him a 1-hour history lesson. Putin knows everything about Tucker Carlson. It was clear he was briefed extensively about Tucker. Newt Tucker tried to work for the CIA, makes fun of him for that. We'll get to that. But Putin deliberately, knowing that Tucker wants to ask questions and get answers, spending an hour slowly, excruciatingly boringly, trying to, I guess, address the history of the region, and Tucker with a frozen expression on his face of what the hell have I gotten myself into? So we're going to pick it. We'll just look at a little bit of each of these sections. You're going to hear the voiceover, Putin speaking in Russian, and you'll hear voiceover in English. This is about a half hour into Putin's history lesson. And Tucker tries to interrupt, and Putin just makes fun of him and says, no. You want to interrupt and make this an entertaining show. I thought this was going to be a serious show. Tucker laughs because he's completely emasculated by Putin.
Characterization of what you said.
Я понимаю, что мои длинные диалоги, они...
I understand that my long speeches probably fall outside of the genre of the interview. That is why I asked you at the beginning, are we going to have a serious talk or a show? You said a serious talk. So bear with me, please. We're coming to the point where the Soviet Ukraine was established.
So Putin says, listen, you told me this was going to be serious, and I'm now getting to the point in my history lesson where...
Did you see how uncomfortable Tucker is? Because you got to remember, he's used to like U.S. politicians. He's not used to a guy who kills journalists he doesn't like.
Right. Well, and okay, not that I'm trying to defend Putin or Russia or anything else, but you know, when he does an interview with a Russian journalist, like he just says whatever it is that he's saying. There's like, this isn't like nobody's coming after him and pushing him for whatever or this or that, or you know what I mean? So
no, because he has
I don't know.
Because he has state TV. The journalists are always the people he wants. And they always, when they interview people like on the street and stuff, it's always really awkward because it's like, you know, oh no, I love Putin. Putin's great. I think he's the best. I think Ukraine is evil. Now will you guys release my family from prison? I mean, that's kind of how it goes off. Because the guy basically has everybody's, you know, at gunpoint. But Tucker's doesn't have the balls to stand up to that. I mean,
later, Putin has not answered a single question from Tucker, and he then gets to the presidency of George H.W. Bush.
So this is like 50 minutes, and now he's finally gotten to the 21st century, but he's still 20 years ago.
By Bush Jr.'s father, Bush Sr., to visit his place on the ocean. After was invited.
It's amazing to see Putin do this to Tucker because Tucker's not used to interviewing the leaders of countries where there isn't a free press. Maybe in some loose, ostensible way there is, but journalists get killed in Russia when they say the wrong thing. And it's like when Castro wanted to speak for 8 hours, and everybody sat there peeing and pooping their pants as they listened because he says he's going to speak for 8 hours and you'd better listen. If Putin wants to do a 2-hour history lesson and not answer a single question, Tucker is going to sit there and he's going to take it. 42 minutes into Putin's history lesson, they've reached the year of 2008.
It says that Ukraine is a neutral state, and in 2008, suddenly the doors or gates to NATO were open.
So we're slowly moving forward. After 45 minutes or so, they were close to 20 years ago. And then 46 minutes into the history lesson, Tucker gets made fun of by Putin for having wanted to join the CIA, which Putin says, and I understand it's sort of a serious organization.
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand.
At this point,
look at the look on his face. That is fucking terror right there. Now he's sitting there thinking, oh my God, this guy knows fucking everything about me.
expression on Tucker's face is, oh boy, how much research has Putin been doing into my personal background?
We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although it is a serious organization. I understand.
Oh boy. We should thank God they didn't let you in.
Well,
what?
Well, that's more of a dig at that's a dig at Tucker, and it's a dig at the CIA. You have to remember,
Yeah.
Putin started his career as a KGB officer. He was the enemy in the Cold War. I mean, imagine if we had a CIA assassin as the president of the United States. That would be a fucking trip. That's essentially what Russia's got. They've got a Cold War spook running their country. And that's the problem. Is he's doing all this history shit. He is still stuck in the Cold War. I mean, he still thinks it's like 1985 and he's in East Berlin. It's fucking insane. But the whole time, Tucker just got his ass handed to him. And then, of course, Chris Wallace, who used to work on Fox News and now is on, I think, CNN, who worked with Tucker, Chris Wallace had to take a dig. And I just thought this was fucking hilarious. So we'll wrap up just with Chris Wallace. We'll sell it for it.
Tucker Carlson showed up in Moscow this week to interview Vladimir Putin. It turned out to be anything but an interview. Putin droned on for 2 hours and 7 minutes, while Tucker sat there like an eager puppy. Occasionally, but rarely, he got in a question, like this one about the power of the deep state in Washington.
It sounds like you're describing a system that's not run by the people who are elected in your telling.
Именно так.
That's right. That's right.
But more telling than what Tucker asked is what he didn't ask. Nothing about why Putin invaded a sovereign country. Nothing about targeting civilians. Nothing about Russian war crimes. A reporter can ask Putin a tough question if he wants a real interview.
What's this?
Why is it that so many of the people that oppose Vladimir Putin
End up dead or close to it? But apparently, that's not why Tucker.
So Chris Wallace did interview him years ago, about 6 years ago, and he did ask him a bunch of tough questions. And Putin didn't answer him. And Chris Wallace came out. But Chris Wallace came out looking like a badass. Right? Because he asked him tough questions, knowing full well that he might not walk out of Russia alive.
Right.
But Tucker Carlson, that was his whole fucking interview.
What a pansy. My question is, what did Tucker Carlson think was going to happen when he went in there to interview Putin? Like, what did he actually think was going to happen? Did he think that, did he go there with the intention just not really to ask stuff, or did he somehow think it was going to be entirely easier than what it was, that Putin was just going to give it to him easily? I don't know.
Well, he didn't want to, I don't think he wanted to ask any tough questions to begin with. I think this was it was all propaganda. It's all the Fox News shit that he used to do, where he's playing to the Trump base and that crowd, and he figures, oh, well, Putin and me, we're one of the same, right? But he doesn't realize, no, Putin dragged you on television so he could kick you around and show the Russian people just how awesome he is.
Right.
Which is why Chris Wallace has never been invited back.
Right.
Because that went bad for Putin, and they never aired that interview in Russia. But they got him, and you saw the look on Tucker's face. You know they aired that on Russian television. Look how terrified these so-called tough Americans are.
Right.
He basically gave Putin everything he wanted out of the propaganda there. It was just a fucking shit show. I want to do this, though, with the whole situation in Ukraine, and we sort of talked about this, and I'll get more into this on Patreon if you guys want to check it out. But agriculture, so this is, what is this? This is Ukraine. What's the global economic impact of Russia's invasion? Then this is the Economics Observatory. So Ukrainian GDP growth is plummeted since they were invaded. right? So poverty, food insecurity, agriculture is down, right? Declining Ukraine's agriculture sector has been especially harmful. Ukraine and Russia were the biggest producers of agriculture and food globally. Before the war, 55% of Ukraine's land area was used for arable farming. And now that a lot of it's been burned from the war. So part of the reason your food prices are going up is a lot of stuff we could get from Ukraine, we can't get anymore. So the prices are way up because there's a shortage.
Right.
It talks about sanctions. I get more into that and how that works. Russia, on the other hand, too, and this is important if you're investing and you're doing what we call emerging markets. So Russia's one of them. India, there are a few of them. But Russia has had to change its economy quite a bit because their car manufacturing is a fourth of what it was before the war started, because all the Western countries that built cars there, that had manufacturing facilities there, they all pulled out as part of the sanctions. So Russia's had to change what it's doing. So now it's making more basic kind of stuff for like war kind of, basic metals, basic materials, basic medical supplies. And that's sort of their economy's wrapped now around their little war machine. And whatever they can sell to whoever, China, Syria, whoever. So, I mean, they're really sucking money. So, yeah. Anyway, I get more into that going forward. But yeah, that's just crazy stuff. I mean, also check out on Patreon. I'll go into sort of what's going on with oil markets. And I'll cover what's going on with General Motors and how that's going to affect sort of the stock market as a whole in your portfolio. And then we'll go into some of the inflation stuff. Inflation was not as bad as we were thinking it was going to be. I mean, it wasn't as great as we wanted, but it's not as bad. So we can skip all that stuff. But let's, you want to take a quick break and then get into some clips, and then we'll jump for that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right.